This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnisch. With me today, Pennsylvania State Representative Clint Owlett and the president of Lantern Rescue, Korrin. We're talking human trafficking. There is a lot on this topic in Pennsylvania right now, and what a treat to have the head of a nationwide anti-human trafficking organization, Lantern Rescue, and a state representative to hash it out. There is a new human trafficking caucus and 2 bills to start in the works. Clint, tell me about House Bill 1835 and House Bill 910.
Yeah, 2 very important pieces of legislation. We're trying to increase penalties for CSAM images that depict relatives, and that's what House Bill 1835 really is designed to address. And the other thing that we're seeing is the trafficking of infants, and the current penalties for that are really not enough in our minds, and we're trying to turn that into a felony, and that's what House Bill 910 does.
Tell me about these images. What's happening in Pennsylvania?
What used to be called child pornography is now called CSAM, which stands for child sexual abuse material. In these images, what we've been seeing a lot of lately is images that are depicting, whether it's real or pretend, an incestual relationship. And right now, there is not an enhancement for that crime. CSAM itself is a terrible crime, and it affects children for the rest of their lives. But you add on to that, the one safe place you're supposed to have, your parents, your family, they're the ones doing the abuse. So it's another added layer of abuse. There's 3 different things that you can be charged under. A lot of people are charged under several of these things, but there's possession, distribution, and creation. With possession, we're seeing it a lot on people's phones, which means that they possess the images, they've gotten them from somebody. Creation, it's hard to say for sure how many images like that are being created here in Pennsylvania. And distribution is when they're sharing the images. So we see a lot of the possession, a lot of the distribution, and it's oftentimes hard to determine if they're created here in Pennsylvania, but demand drives the supply. So whether they're created here or elsewhere, people here are soliciting them, they're possessing them, they're distributing them. They are driving this demand.
We can't just pretend that it's not happening. These are heavy conversations. We don't like talking about them. We're seeing more and more convictions, especially of the possession of child pornography and CSAM on people's phones all across Pennsylvania. Even in my district, we read about it in the paper, see arrests being made for possessing this type of material on people's phones. And we have to try to protect these kids. If no one else is going to, we have to at least start having the conversation and looking for ways to address this issue, because it really hurts them. And like Korrin said, there should be safe places in your home with your family members. And if that is trending in the opposite direction, then somebody's got to start talking about this, and there definitely should be some increased penalties for taking that safe space away from a child.
Tell me a little bit more about House Bill 910.
We're trying to make sure that there's an increase in penalty for trafficking an infant. And an infant in this means a child 1 year of age or younger. We want to turn that into a felony. If someone's moving an infant around in Pennsylvania and trafficking that infant, we believe these would fall in line with being a felony, and that's what we're trying to increase that penalty to.
Where are these bills at?
Yeah, so they've been referred to committees, and we have not seen any movement on them. One of the things that we are excited about in Pennsylvania is we have just recently started an anti-human trafficking caucus, and this is bipartisan and it's bicameral. So it has members of the House and the Senate and Republicans and Democrats coming together to try to identify some very specific pieces of legislation that we can work on together. This issue is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a suburban, urban, or rural issue. This is a Pennsylvania issue. So we want to lead by example, show that we can work on issues together in both chambers and across the aisle to address it. And I have the opportunity to be on the steering team for that anti-human trafficking caucus. So these are a couple of the bills that we're bringing to the table to see if we can get across the finish line.
Let's shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk digital human trafficking. What are you working on with that?
So digital human trafficking is something that I learned about. Actually, Korrin brought this to my attention, and it's really prevalent in rural communities. And we often think of human trafficking as the white van on the corner, and that is not the case in rural Pennsylvania. But what we're seeing more is digital human trafficking, where people are targeting our kids through their phones, through different apps and different relationships, and trying to engage them with conversations in hopes to get them to share content with them that they can then use to blackmail the student, the child, to produce even more content for them to then sell.
I'm sure everyone has seen a Facebook post that's like, my friend's sister's cousin's twice-removed uncle was almost trafficked in a Target parking lot. I understand people's fear when they go out into public, especially with trafficking being such a prevalent topic in the news right now. But that is not the most common way for someone to be trafficked. The most common way for people to be trafficked is through people that they know or have developed a relationship with. And we're seeing that happen a lot online. So it's not to say don't be cautious when you're out in public, but when people are so busy looking around their environment and looking for an external threat, they're overlooking the internal threats, which is just on the phone. You think your kid's safe when they're in their room and you're in the living room watching a movie, and in reality, they're in their room talking to people that are trying to exploit them. There's another word called sexploitation that's becoming popular, and that is exactly what Representative Owlett had just said about how they will meet someone online, that person will start to groom them, get them to send explicit images and videos, and then use those to force them to create more. We also see grooming to where they actually end up meeting in person. So these people are wanting to develop this slow, long-term relationship with them so that it's not sending up red flags immediately. And it's happening within people's homes. It's happening on the devices. I've had tons of parents come and speak to me about, at seminars that I'm at, they come and speak to me and they have their kid standing next to them. The kid is playing on the phone, completely engrossed in the phone, and the parents are talking to me about how to tell their kids to stay away from strangers. And I'm like, well, there's a really good chance they're talking to them on the phone right now. Like, do you know what's on that phone? Do you know what they're doing? So it's not to say don't be cautious of external threats, but it is more likely that it would be someone that the child knows, whether it's in person or virtually, that would try to traffic them.
It seems like it would be a difficult thing to rein in, almost like playing whack-a-mole. You knock one conversation down, but how on earth do you begin to stop what predators are doing online?
Yeah, I think we've done some seminars on this in our district and had some really amazing stories that have come from it, where parents are all of a sudden realizing the threat that's out there. Their eyes are opened up, and the need for engagement in your kids' lives is so important now. It's always been important, but the threats and the temptations and opportunities and the people that are preying on our kids through their phones is astronomical. So you have to be engaged in your kids' lives more now than ever, and be engaged in what they're looking at, who they're talking to, all that stuff. I had an intern that stopped by my office. She was actually interning with another House member down in Harrisburg, and I asked her randomly, I'm like, hey, so I'm just curious. I'm working on this presentation on digital human trafficking. I said, out of, the high school kids that she was from down Lancaster Way, out of your friends in high school, how many of your friends are actively talking with people that they don't know online? And she's like, oh, at least 90%. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And she said, yeah. She's like, absolutely. It's not abnormal at all to talk to people that they have no idea who they're talking to on a regular basis online. And those types of things, it can lead to some really dark places for these kids. And we want to make sure that parents are aware of that. And so is it a piece of legislation? I don't know. We're still trying to figure out what the best way to handle this is. But what I often tell people is never underestimate the power of a sausage patty and a pancake. Engaging with your kids at such a high level, and your grandkids, having those hard conversations, those awkward conversations. We're parents. We do awkward conversations every day. It's fine. But have those conversations with your kid. Take them out to breakfast. Engage with them on a regular basis. Do it often. Don't just say, well, I talked to them one time about digital human trafficking and check the box, it's over. The threat is never over. And so put up safeguards. Try to look for ways to engage with them. That's the real practical way. That's not a piece of legislation that's going to get stalled in the Judiciary Committee in Pennsylvania. These are things that we can address at home and with our families. It just takes a little bit of grit and know-how and added involvement to do that. And that's what we're employing people to do, because these are issues that we can handle at the home front, and we have to.
Last question, Korrin. You're the president of Lantern Rescue. Do you have any statistics on why this matters so much in Pennsylvania? How often is this happening? Because I think as parents, we think, oh, it won't happen to our kids. They're not going to get exposed to that. How serious of an issue is this?
It's an extremely serious issue. I can't emphasize enough that it is in every single town. No matter how small your town is, if your town has 500 people, it can still be happening. It is happening everywhere. They're predators. They're called that for a reason. So they are online searching for your children. They're searching for a way in for anything that looks like any type of vulnerability. So if they're sharing online how they lost a soccer game or how their parents don't understand them or whatever that is, traffickers are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to fixate on it and use it to exploit these children, use it to get close to them. And it's happening in person, it's happening online. Online can turn into in person very quickly. So you can't underestimate that. It's not happening in my town. My kid would never. Don't say those things because it can happen to anyone, anywhere. Like Representative Owlett was saying, 90% of high schoolers from the intern's perspective are speaking to people they don't know online. That is so alarming. And it is so easy for an innocent conversation to turn into something that is exploitative very quickly. So we can't underestimate this. No child is above this happening to them.
Learn more at lanternrescue.org.